For the next session, titled The Founding Fathers and the Relevance of the Mahatma Today, we have author Davidar and eminent historian and biographer Mr. Rajmohan Gandhi. So I invite them to begin the discussion and take the stage forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just saying to Rajmohan that he's done pretty much all the sessions this morning, so we're going to try and avoid repeating what he has been speaking about, although we will touch upon some of these concerns because they are absolutely intrinsic to the way he sees the world. As we know, he's the author of several books, 14 if I've got the count right, of which many are biographies, some are histories, and the third go deep into the concerns that that he's been interested in all his life. At the moment, he also teaches a bit, but I'm delighted that he's also writing a new and very important book. Before we get into the session direct, I must say it's a great honor and privilege for me to be speaking with him, because in this very city, 40 years ago, when I was a pretty much unemployable graduate from MCC, Rajmohan threw me a lifeline when he hired me for his magazine Himmat, and so I've known him since then. And I have greatly admired him and tried to figure out his worldview, because it's very important for public intellectuals from Rajmohan Gandhi to show us the way. So I'd like to start with a question you've been asked many times this morning, which is purely to provide some context for those who may not have been at previous sessions. And that question is, in your view, what are the biggest challenges facing India today?
Goodness, that's quite a question. I would say that a large challenge is how to get the diverse groups of people who are profoundly concerned with what's happening today to work together, to learn to work together. I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's inevitable or natural. But so many people are today profoundly troubled about what's happening. They're troubled for a variety of reasons. Some come from the left, some come from the right, some come from the center. Some are deeply concerned for economic reasons, some are concerned for fundamental human rights reasons. But to have, and many of them are very courageous people, they're fearless people, they're prepared to pay a price. And they're paying a price all the time, also many of them. So, in my mind, what I yearn for the most at the present time is for these amazing people of different kinds to somehow find a way of working together, of not remembering the terrible things that these colleagues of theirs or these people they now find on the same side as they are, their previous disagreements. I find rather strange when people who are very unhappy about certain things happening today then say, but of course, Congress is so bad, or Rahul is not good enough, or Indira Gandhi was so terrible. Yes, Indira Gandhi was often terrible, and Rahul Gandhi has certainly much to improve upon. But you don't have to say that each time you say that we are so concerned about the fundamental repudiation of liberty, equality, and fraternity. So some willingness to set previous complaints, grievances, dissatisfactions to one side and coming together for, and not just for India, in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Burma, all our neighbors, let alone Afghanistan, which is in category by itself. But this majoritarianism, this view of regarding some people as not good enough to be nationals, this is a terrible disease for South Asia, and India must show the way forward.
When you say somehow we need to make common cause, find a way to roll back this this tide that is sweeping us. You have personal experience of the last time things were so dire, which was during the emergency. What was it that, if you had to sum up what each of us could do or what people did then, could you sort of, shed some light on what each of us might do from your personal experience?
So when we find anyone doing something that is necessary or courageous or writing a good piece or making a good intervention in any discussion, let us appreciate what they do. In India, we have the language of flattery, but we don't have the language of genuine appreciation. So when we find anyone amongst us, or even somebody we do not know, has made a good point in a newspaper or on television, blog, somewhere else, we can appreciate that. And also, another very important thing that I learned during the emergency when I had the privilege of opposing it, many of my good friends were in prison, but some were not. But there was so much misinformation about those who were fighting the emergency. Oh, he is sold out, she is sold out, they're on the other side. So one very useful thing that I was able to do in my very small way was to meet people and say, wait a minute, so-and-so is certainly not sold out. He or she is fighting away in his own way. So to remove the suspicion, the mistrust between people who are on the same side is another very useful thing we can do.
But also, the fight is absolutely important. You can't sort of say, my role is so small, or I am not able to influence the course of events and so on. Regardless, one needs to fight one's corner.
Without any doubt. I mean, as I said this morning, the pen, the song, the drama, and the biggest weapon of all, the joke. The joke. Which has been the bane of totalitarian, or a great threat to totalitarian societies and regimes. So yes, we must wage the fight in every possible way, wherever we are.
In our 70th year, or thereabouts, it's interesting, I think, to consider the vision our founding fathers had for the country. You've written a book about it. Could you summarize that vision, and then we'll sort of look at how far we've moved from there?
Well, I think that vision is found in 2 or 3 very short documents. One is the preamble. The preamble has liberty, equality, fraternity, as we know. Justice also it has. And there's another fantastic vision is Tagore's, that short poem. How does it go? Yeah. The mind without fear. Those are our goals. So, and we have to keep reminding one another and India of this. India does stand for liberty, equality, fraternity. India has not always lived up to these great goals. Even for independent India has not. Even many of the founding fathers were sometimes weak on some of these issues. But these goals were accepted by the leaders, by the founding fathers, by the people. The Vishwa Guru goal is not good enough. And also it is not impressive enough. Today, when we look at our world, with what face can we say that India is the natural Vishwa Guru? I mean, when we look at our poverty, our unemployment, Arun gave the facts and figures earlier today about the blind, about the very poor. No, India is not a natural teacher for the world, but India certainly has a role in the world. India is there for a purpose. 1.2 billion people are here for a purpose, and that purpose is not confined to India. India has certainly a role for the world. India has to be a brother and sister to the world, maybe, not a teacher, not a guru. We can't claim we have done so much better than everybody else, but we can claim that, yes, we have a responsibility, and we will, of course, try and display some of that in the way we deal with one another within India. So, I mean, you know, there is this. Gandhi is, by the way, here, there, and everywhere, not just on currency notes. I don't know how long he'll be allowed to be there, but that's another matter. But he's there on all kinds of billboards, particularly Swachh Bharat. But to reduce Gandhi to a sweeper of streets. Now, Gandhi would have been very happy to be a lifelong sweeper of streets. But to say Gandhi is a sweeper of streets, but not to say Ishwar, Allah tere naam. Can you talk of Gandhi without at least occasionally reminding yourself, Ishwar Allah tere naam? Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, sab hai Bharat ke bhai bhai. And that's Gandhi, and that is Vivekananda too, that's Tagore, that's Nehru, that's Subhash Bose, that's Bhagat Singh. All these icons. You know, I met a very interesting Hindu, quote-unquote, God man. He's actually a very interesting man. He said Gandhi was a very good man, but he made two mistakes. A, he did not realize how bad Islam was. And B, he did not realize how good a gun was. But then, Gandhi was, by the way, the notion that Gandhi was an absolutist for non-violence is absurd. He wasn't. He wanted India to defend itself. He wanted people to defend the threatened, the innocent, the vulnerable, if need be with force. But of course he knew that violence can become a habit and you can destroy one another. And he always said, this too is people have forgotten. One of his most compelling arguments in favor of ahimsa was, in this land where so many are physically disabled, mentally weak, if you allow the strong to have guns as well, and you make guns and lathis and the sword respectable, what happens to the weak? What happens to the women? What happens to the Dalits? What's happened to the physically vulnerable? So that's why he was for non-violence. But he was for a strong defense for India. He was for people to defend the weak. Anyway, I can go on and on, so I'll stop.
I want to pick up on one strand of what you were talking about just now and play the devil's advocate here, which is the kind of worldview that is being espoused by the ruling dispensation at the moment, which says, we can have all these things, but let's also be a Hindu Rashtra. What is the problem with that?
Yeah, one great problem with that is, why should you give me my name? If I'm a Christian or a Muslim, or a Jain, or a Buddhist, or a Sikh, or an atheist, why do you force me to call myself Hindu? You can say that I regard you as a Hindu. Well, that's up to you. But don't tell me what to call myself. Everybody should have absolute independence. I mean, the freedom of the individual, the right to have a name, to call myself what I want, is so crucial. So, sure, yes, there are Muslims, but Muslim एक पंथ है हिंदुओं का. Muslim Panthi, you are Muslim Panthi Hindus. Well, you may regard me like that, but if I call myself something else, I have my right to do that. So the Hindu Rashtra cannot be acceptable to those who are unhappy with that. They not only want freedom of expression and complete equality, and with what face can we argue for the rights of Indians in the United States, people of Indian origin, if Americans insist that they should be called Christians or Christian Hindus or whatever, we will not like that. We want the Indian people of Indian origin in the Western world to have all the freedoms. We must give similar freedoms to every single person in India.
Okay, staying with these alternative worldviews, today there's a systematic attempt to discredit Nehru. Would Patel or Bose have led the country better?
Well, Patel and Nehru for 3 years, from 47 to December 50, only 15 minutes to go, by the way. Patel and Nehru did run the country together. There was what people called a duumvirate. The notion that Nehru and Patel were always on opposite sides is absolute bunkum. It's untrue to history. Nehru and Patel were more often together than they were in disagreement with each other. So Patel had a very large role in running independent India. There be no mistake about that. Subhash Bose, of course. Now, there are many if-only questions. If Subhash Bose had not escaped, that was an incredible escape, and it was a great story, and will always remain a great story. But had Subhash Bose stayed on in India, not gone out, it would have been a very interesting situation. He might well have been a very important figure. He would have been a very important figure in the story of India. It's very hard to speculate what life would have been like. But I think, let's be clear on this. Subhash Chandra Bose was as committed to Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian unity as Gandhi and Nehru were. There's no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt about that.
As was Patel.
Yes, with some, there were nuances where he differed. Patel definitely was a staunch Hindu. And as I found in my research, and as I wrote in my book on Sardar Patel, he had a Hindu heart. So if reports came that so many Hindus were killed, and other reports came in 47 that so many Muslims were killed, he had different reactions. As a human being, he had different reactions, but as the enforcer of the law, he enforced the law, and he protected the Muslims, and he protected the Hindus both. So as far as Hindu Rashtra was concerned, Hindu Raj was concerned, there's so many clear instances of his utter rejection, repudiation. He called it a mad idea. Hindu Raj, he said, was a mad idea.
In your latest book, Why Gandhi Still Matters, you have a surprisingly intimate portrait of the Mahatma from time to time. Could you give the audience a taste of some of the things you write about your grandfather?
Gosh. I would say that, the last 2 years of his life were the most dramatic of his life. This man, who was called Father of the Nation by Subhash Bose, first of all, he was the undisputed leader. He could nominate prime ministers. This man, in the final 2 years of his life, becomes a village-level relief worker. He walks from village to village in East Bengal, then he does the same in Bihar. During one stretch of time in East Bengal, he walked day to day and lived in 47 different villages on 47 different nights at the age of 76, 77. Can you imagine? Often walking barefoot. Now, there may be a slight inaccuracy. It may not have been 47 consecutive nights, one night each. He may have spent 2 nights in one village home. So he becomes, at the end of his life, marginalized, but he does this fundamental work of Hindu-Muslim reconciliation at the grassroots. And, several historians have found this. The Calcutta fast of his in September of 47, shortly after independence, which did produce an amazing reconciliation in Calcutta. And violence did stop. And then his final fast in Delhi in January of 48, which of course made many people unhappy, and his several months that he spent in Delhi in his final phase were also quite amazing. But then, I don't know what else he was vulnerable. He was very frank about himself. He often questioned himself. But there was a very heroic ordinariness to his life in the final 2 years. And he, you might say, was no longer the unquestioned leader of the country, but he became a very, very genuine brother, father, sister even, as he would like to claim, because he felt that there was a woman in him as well. So there was an incredible insaniyat to the Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi of the last 2 years, which I think not enough people have understood.
I also wanted to know what he was like as a grandfather to you.
Well, as a grandfather, he was very affectionate. He would hug you. He would hit his grandchildren on the backs if they bowed before him, which we often did. We teased him. But we had very relatively short periods of time with him. I mean, he who was trying to make of India one family obviously could not have enough time for his own children and grandchildren. But during the brief moments he was exceedingly affectionate and warm and teasing and sometimes taunting. Yeah.
One of the statements you make, which is kind of counterintuitive but also intriguing, is that the assassination of the Mahatma led to the strengthening of Indian secularism. Could you explain that?
Well, although Gandhi again and again said, Ishwar Allah Tere Naam, he was without doubt a very genuine, very proud Hindu. And he was accepted as such by everybody. He was loved by the vast majority of Hindus, although some Hindus were angry that he was not angry enough at the Muslims. He was not anti-Muslim. That was not liked by some. But that Gandhi was a Hindu and a great Hindu and a Hindu that the world loved was known to everybody. So the assassination of Gandhi by Hindu extremists made the cause of Hindu extremism deservedly very unpopular, because the most loved Hindu was killed, and that made Hindu extremism very unpopular and made secularism easier to enforce in the country.
You have fought 2 elections. Why did you want to enter political life, and what did you hope to achieve?
Actually, David, you don't know, I fought more than 2, but I've lost all the elections I've fought.
Sorry, my apologies.
I've actually fought 4 elections. One was a pure mistake, but the 3 elections, the other 3, I'm very glad that I fought. And there was a reason for each. People may not believe it, but I didn't really feel that to have the title of an MP was something very glorious or gorgeous. I just felt that I could do something useful. Of course, there was the emergency which I opposed, and afterwards I wanted to keep the Janata Party united. I tried my little bit. I didn't succeed there. So I wanted to enter parliament to try and be of some use to the Janata Party, to be a friend to everybody. Similarly, with VP Singh, I was also keen that that experiment should succeed. Then I was very keen that the Aam Aadmi Party experiment should succeed. And I entered the last election of 2014, East Delhi, because I knew that Narendra Modi was likely, if not to be Prime Minister, likely to be there, very powerful and influential in Lok Sabha. And I also wanted to have the chance to say to the Lok Sabha what I'm saying to all of you. And I thought that would be useful to do. And the Aam Aadmi Party had some wonderful ideals, and it still has wonderful ideals. And of course, I was very disappointed that Arvind Kejriwal and Yogendra Yadav and Prashant Bhushan fell out. One reason I wanted to contest was I wanted to keep these 3 and others like them also together. You know, I've had 3 or 4 attempts to keep people who are on the same side together. I didn't always succeed, but I'm willing to make the same attempt again and again.
Does this mean you're going to fight the election in 2019?
Well, I'm only 82 at the moment, so
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
I'm not going to contest any election again.
Okay. What do you think the outcome of 2019 is going to be?
I think quite unpredictable as of now, of course. I would say 75% chances of Narendra Modi winning. But between now and then, there's so many weeks, and every week in politics can be a game changer, so we don't know. But I would say that many people have underestimated the Indian people, and many people have read the Indian people wrongly, including Indira Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi during the emergency. So don't be too sure about what the Indian people will do or will not do.
Final question before I open this session up to the audience. What are you working on at the moment?
Well, there is this South India book that I'm trying to write. I'm trying to write a broad brush, in many ways it will be superficial, history of South India. And by South India, I mean all the regions south of Maharashtra and south of Orissa. So the Telugu-speaking, Kannada-speaking, Konkani-speaking, Tulu-speaking, Tamil-speaking, Malayalam-speaking, I'm not naming all the tribal languages of southern India, but a very broad brush overview from 1639, when Fort St. George was established here, to the year 2000. I don't want to go into the last 10, 12 years, or 17 years. There's nothing in my book that will educate the specialist about his or her area. But it may educate even the specialist about neighboring areas of South India.
And there is no such overview of the region.
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. Nobody has written modern history of South India, or a colonial South India, or the post-independence period, to my knowledge, of South India as a whole.
Well, thank you very much, Rajmohan. I think we might have about 5 minutes for questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gandhi. It's glad you're writing a book about South Indian history. My question is, there is being a trend of rewriting of the history textbook in the school education. Each government, when they come to power, they are editing the history textbook. Is that a right way to teach history to the future India, to know about their past? This is my question. And my next question is, what are your views about the competitive proclamation of legacy of the foundation fathers? Like, who is great, Subhash Chandra Bose or Gandhi, Nehru or Gandhi? These competitive proclamation of legacies. What is your view?
So a great question. First question, you yourself know the answer to that. I mean, can anybody justify rewriting of history? I think it's really an absolutely shocking thing to do. On your second question, that's a great point. One truth I did learn at a very young age was to live by appreciation, not by comparison. To live by appreciation, not by comparison. Subhash Bose, Bhagat Singh, Nehru, Patel, Maulana Azad, Tilak, Gokhale, so many South Indian leaders, say C.R. and Periyar. Now, shall we always compare Periyar and C.R. and say he was bad here, he was bad there? Or shall we say, what a fantastic man Periyar was? What a fantastic man C.R. was? Yes, C.R. may not have won over all the various communities and castes of South India, of Tamil Nadu, as Periyar did, but C.R. also was able to do so much across India. I mean, how proud we should be as Tamilians that we had Periyar and we had C.R.
Sir, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad in his memoirs said that he was absolutely convinced that Mahatma Gandhi would never accept the idea of partition, which in retrospect was an unmitigated disaster for undivided India. He also speaks of being completely devastated and gutted when, if memory serves me right, he mentions the book, Mahatma Gandhi went into a private meeting with Sardar Patel and Nehru and came outside and told him, I have accepted the idea of partition. Why did the Mahatma who opposed partition finally accept that idea? Thank you.
It's a great question, but I would say to you a full and detailed answer to your question is available in my Gandhi book, in my Patel book, and is available in Gandhi's own words. He was asked before he died, why did he accept partition? Maulana Azad's book, by the way, I say now with very, very, very deep respect for his memory. His book, which he wrote some years after the events, which he wrote out of his memory, he dictated some of his things. We should not take every sentence in that book either as being totally accurate or even as representing his considered point of view. Maulana Azad, neither Azad nor Gandhi nor Patel nor Nehru should be judged primarily on the basis of the information in that otherwise very useful book.
Madhavi.
I want to speak partly today to express my appreciation for what you've been saying all morning, as David reminded us. Thank you for everything you've said. It's been refreshing and wonderful and very timely. But I'm also speaking partly because I noticed that the only people who are tending to ask questions this morning have been men. And only men tend to speak in public. And I'm wondering if part of the reason that that might be the case is precisely because we have panel headings called the Founding Fathers, which is a phrase that I have always deeply disliked. And it's a phrase I've disliked not because it's not true that many men were very important in the making of historical moments, and I don't want to deny that, but I'm equally convinced that there were, and as I'm sure you are, convinced that there were many women involved as well in these foundational moments of historical nation building and just the making of history. And so I'm just wondering, to your mind, who are these women we might speak about as well in the foundation of India? Thank you.
First of all, I absolutely underline what you have said and agree with it. I wish I had said it myself, but you're absolutely right about that. One of the most amazing women, of course, of India was Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. One of so many others. I mean, I don't now want to sort of have any list that may induce the competitive spirit that here I discourage. I may encourage it in other areas. But is there any doubt? I mean, no. I mean, what you have said, let's underline it, let's applaud it, and let's accept the responsibility of people like me that we haven't said that enough, acknowledged enough, clearly enough, so thank you.
I'm very happy to have a conversation with Mr. President Gandhi. In 1927, the Congress had their conference in Chennai under the leadership of Dr. Ansari. And at that time, Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Annie Besant, Salem Vijayvarahachari, all are one side. They wanted to pass a resolution whether the government, India is needed full freedom or dominion status. But Gandhiji, he instructed unofficially Ansari not to pass this resolution. Do you think he has taken the correct decision? Because after that, Srinivas Iyengar of Mylapore, he predicted Gandhiji and he said face to face, Mr. Mohandas, you wanted to adjust all your adjustments as your achievements in the name of non-violence and non-cooperation. And I fear you may meet unnatural death either by a Muslim or by a Hindu. That was a statement given by Srinivas Iyengar in 1927. Do you think the Gandhiji decision and that conference, was it right or wrong? Can you give your comments for that? Thank you.
Gandhi made many decisions in his long life on many matters like this, resolutions before the Congress Committee. Some may have been right, some may have been wrong. his decision in 1927 on complete independence and dominion status was, I think from his standpoint, it made sense for him at that stage to go step by step. And you know, a year or two thereafter, Congress said, if dominion status is not granted in 1 year, we will have complete independence. So don't imagine that there was a fundamental difference between Gandhi and the others on that issue. I think for you to think that there was a very fundamental difference would be a mistaken reading of history.
We're out of time, but I'm going to allow that lady the question because, you know, she has been very patient.
So now we'll leave the hall. After that, I want to know what the practical step we have to take to stop the hatred, which is spreading like wildfire. The first practical step, we will leave all hall. So what we have to do, sir?
So each of us, please sit down, please sit down. Thank you for a very important question. So each one of us should ask ourselves, what is a practical step I can do? For instance, if I don't know a Dalit family well enough, will I befriend a Dalit family? If I don't know a Muslim family well enough, will I befriend a Muslim family? Will I, in my neighborhood, show an example of people overcoming these barriers? As I said earlier today, we have opinions about our neighbors, we don't have knowledge about our neighbors. Will we learn something about neighboring groups about whom we don't know enough?
Thank you all. Thank you, Rajmohan. A very, very good session. And more power to you.